already introduced Dave, and this is Kim Van Fleet, who's the important bird coordinator. Now, I need to know what that is. You have to forgive me, but I read that and thought, what is that?
Okay, well, the important bird area coordinator, there are 3 of them in the States. I cover the region of the state from the Pocono region down to the southwest corner and then the south central and north central. We also have coordinators for the northwest and southeast areas of the state. What the coordinators do is they're all responsible for particular IBAs in the state of which we have.
Define IBA. Don't know the acronym.
Okay, acronym. Yeah, I know. It's a world of acronyms, isn't it? Important bird areas. These are sites that have been designated as important bird area under a number of criteria. Could be where you have birds that, breeding species on site that are state species of conservation concern.
Okay.
It could be that they are federally or state listed as endangered or threatened. The third criteria where you have a high diversity and abundance of bird species, and in particular in migration when they go through. Could be that it's a unique or a rare habitat with all the flora and fauna that make it a complete ecosystem.
Now, are you a volunteer or are you an employee of Audubon?
I am an employee of Audubon.
And you're a volunteer?
I'm a volunteer.
Okay. Now tell us, we're talking about the Cliff Jones Field Station. What exactly is that going to be? Tell us more about that.
Well, the Cliff Jones Field Station is going to be an outdoor education outreach area for Audubon, Pennsylvania. It's been sorely lacking in this part of the state, where we actually have, it's kind of been done on a more laid back level, but there are actually going to be signs designating the different species of raptors here. We will have volunteers, and eventually we would like to have paid staff to come up here and do education programs on a regular basis.
Now, the hawks normally fly in the fall, is that?
At this particular site, yeah. The migration itself is very broad front. The birds are coming down from the northern Canadian provinces and the northern...
Going where?
They are, it depends on whether they're a short or long distance migrant. Some will go as far as Central America, South America. Others will go to the Caribbean for a nice winter of sunning on the beach.
That sounds good to me. Well, how long? I'm sorry, go ahead.
And others are just short distance migrants. They may only go 50 miles.
Well, how large are the hawks that you see?
They vary from the American kestrel, which is about the size of a blue jay, to bald eagles, which have a wingspan.
Okay. All right. But a bald eagle is not considered a hawk, is it? Or is it?
It's in
the term we use is raptor.
Right, diurnal raptors.
Diurnal raptors that fly during the daytime, and it includes everything from vultures to eagles.
Okay. Now, how long has this been up here? How long have people been watching hawks from this area?
There were people coming up in the mid-30s.
Oh my word.
Because they were discovering that the migration was taking place on this ridge. A lot of that came from the efforts at Hawk Mountain and the publicity they got there. As a matter of fact, a book was written about Sterrett's Gap and Waggoner's Gap, and I think it was published in 1939. But the counts from this place didn't take place formally until 1952. But we have a database of the counts from 1952 till December 31st this past year, and those counts are in a database that's available to researchers who can do trends, and a book was just published I think in the last month about, it's called Trends of North American Raptors, and it studies 7 major sites from New Jersey, Hawk Mountain here, and a few others, showing the trends of the population of raptors over the last 30 years.
Well, how does one count hawks now? Who comes up here? How frequently do you come up, and how do you do the counting? How do you know you're not counting the same hawk 10 times?
That's question number 1 that we get. I'll start with, our season runs from August 1st to December 31st. So
I bet it's cold as anything up here December 31st.
Well, sometimes. Sometimes it's snow and ice covered that time. Other
how
days.
Do you climb these rocks if they're ice covered?
Slowly.
Good answer. And do you use binoculars, or can you actually see them that you don't need to use the binoculars?
Binoculars are almost a must, because we can detect birds flying out a half mile, and some people even bring spotting scopes and set them up. Yeah. And they're a good tool for identification of the birds that are a half mile out. In the fall, the general direction of the flight is with the ridge,
Okay.
Occasionally we'll have them crossing from north to south. The ridge is oriented northeast to southwest. And they come along, and there are very few that we see going the other way. And what we do is, if we've counted that species of bird in the last hour, we subtract that.
Well, do they fly in pairs, in flocks, or singularly, or how do they do it?
They fly singularly in collective groups at times.
Is there a name for the collective group? Or
they call them kettles. Usually it's 3 or more birds,
okay.
And they'll be rising up on rising currents of hot air, and it's kind of like water in a kettle going up.
Okay.
And we've seen as many as 5,300 in one day.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
And other days we've seen nothing, but it's...
Well, what's the significance of keeping track of them?
The significance of keeping track of them is actually to get a grasp on what's going on with raptor populations across the United States. There are a number of sites where people sit and watch and record raptors both in spring and fall migration. As Dave had talked about, the Raptor Population Index, which is a collaborative project between the Hawk Migration Association of North America, Hawk Mountain Sanctuary Association, and Hawk Watch International. All this data that's been collected over the past 30, 40 years has gone into this database that Dave talked about. And they're looking at population trend analysis, and they're saying that although you're not counting every bird that's migrating through, you're getting a good grasp on what's happening with the populations. Early on, the examples of this is that Hollywood we're noticing a lot less bald eagles and peregrine falcons, and the birds that were coming through were adult birds and not immature birds.
All right.
So that kind of raised a red flag that something was going on. Additional research was done. Patuxent got involved, that was their primary responsibility at that time, still is. And they, through trial and error, hypothesis, looking at what's going on out in the environment, they found that DDT was definitely impacting these breeding birds.
All right.
So that's just one example of how this data could be used.
I hope the camera can see that behind us, this magnificent view is Cumberland County, and we're sitting, and over here is Perry County. And did I understand you to say you can see Juniata, because that's the Tuscarora Mountains way over there?
Well, on a clear day, you can see from Lancaster and Adams and York counties up to Snyder County, which is on the ridge out that way. So it's a good view. And
you mentioned that Ski Round Top, you can actually see that. So I guess in the winter, if you use, is it possible to see skiers? It's not that far away.
That's a little far. That's probably
so.
10, 12 miles or so. But no, we can't get to that level of detail.
Now, did Cliff Jones come up here? I know he's an avid birder, but I don't know if he ever came up here.
He brought his family up. I'm talking to Brad, his son.
Yes.
He just remembered the trips that he made up there. And Cliff came down and sat over here on the rocks several times, and really enjoyed the experience, and was very vocal in pointing out what was going on. He really enjoyed coming out.
Cliff always had an inordinate amount of energy and always wanted to be doing things for, not only for his own family, but for a lot of other people that he drew in and influenced in his life. So the idea that this spot could be more accessible to not only his friends, but anybody in this area or outside the area, because I think you mentioned to me that people come from D.C.
As a matter of fact, I got an email this week from this somebody at the Smithsonian. They're bringing a busload of 40 people up in September. So we get a lot of people from Maryland, Northern Virginia, New Jersey, some from New York, and a lot from the western part of the state.
You know, it's kind of sad that those of us that live in central Pennsylvania, I bet many people that are watching this weren't even aware that this is here. So part of the Cliff Jones Field Station hopefully is to make sure that people understand and are educated about this treasure we have here that they didn't know.
Well, that's exactly it, and we have plans, and they're ongoing right now, where we've actually initiated contact with a lot of local schools, and we're reaching out to the schools in Cumberland, Perry, and Franklin counties right now.
Now, do you get school kids here from this?
Yes, we do. And in fact, we've got a group coming up in September.
Yeah, well, the group I like to talk about most are from Yaleton High School up in Potter County. They come every other year. It's an advanced biology class, and they have fundraising events to pay for the bus, and the driver, and they come down and spend the day and then drive back.
And how long a drive is that?
It's between 3 and 4 hours one
it's
way.
not as far as I thought. Okay.
Well, it's a good haul in a school bus.
Well, I guess that's true. I wasn't thinking about a school bus.
But when people know, and if it's a thing that they like, they come back. We have a lot of people who've been coming up longer than I have, in the 70s.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, we have a treasure here, and I hope that everybody's going to appreciate what we really have. This is a magnificent If we don't get thrown off the road. But who does the counting? How many volunteers do you have up here?
We have a group of about 10 volunteers who do the counting, and there's typically someone here from dawn till dusk, from August through December.
Really? And these are all volunteers or paid people?
All volunteers.
Oh my God.
And it takes a certain amount of experience to be able to look out and identify the birds at a distance. So people that do this usually have 5 or more years of experience, and the people here who are counting and identifying are as good as anybody in the country at doing that.
How does one get this experience? Just by going along with someone who knows what they're talking about?
That's the best. The best teacher is a mentor.
Okay.
I had several here who would take the time to lead me through the process and be able to know what to look for, because the hard thing is when the light isn't good or they're not close, being able to know what 1 or 2 marks on a bird specifically identify that species.
Well, that takes real skill then.
Experience is more so than skill.
Okay.
And also the way they fly, just their flight profile. A lot
yes.
of, and under varying weather conditions, it's going to change.
And the volunteers here are very happy to be able to teach anyone who shows interest in acquiring the skills of identification, because they're always happy to find somebody who's liking the same things that you do.
Well, you said that they like the winds when it's very windy. Do they kind of draft and go up and down with the wind?
Well, that's exactly what happens. There are two, you can classify it as 2 different types of flights. There are the thermals that Dave talked about. They occur earlier in the season when it's warmer. That's when the sun's rays heat up the Earth's surface, and then you have these pockets of warm rising air.
Okay.
That the birds will just soar up. And the whole idea is for the birds to get from point A to point B, utilizing the least amount of energy possible.
Okay.
Okay, so they're going to take advantage of whatever situation is there. So they'll ride up, they'll just soar up on these thermals, hit the top of the thermal, and glide off.
Sounds like a lot
to
of
hit the
fun.
next one. The other type is the ridge soaring, where they actually utilize the updrafts.
Okay.
Along the ridges.
All right.
And along a number of ridges here in Pennsylvania, but this is the most well known. And depending on wind speed, depends on how close the birds are to the ridge.
Okay.
Often in a high wind, they're lower because they don't want to be up in the turbulent air, and so that on a high wind they'll come right over the tops of the trees. Oh. And often you can hear them going by. They come by close enough.
Really? This is such a marvelous spot. Now, if people in my area want to come see it, is there some way they can go to a website and find out about it?
Yes. The website is waggap.com. It's a simple one, waggat.com. And in there it has all the counts back to 1952, plus directions and tips on what you should bring and be prepared for, because as we've experienced today, there's a microclimate up here that's a little different than down in the valley.
Just a wee bit colder.
Yes, indeed.
Well, that's all the time we have for this month's program. I hope you enjoy watching our Audubon Hawk Station as well as a Possum Lake dedication. If you have any questions about this or any state-related questions, please contact my office and join me again next month for another edition of the Vance Report.